Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be speaking to you from a long way away. We're in Iowa, USA, the area where so many of the genetically engineered crops seem to have settled, but we have great concerns about them. And I wanted to just acknowledge the wonderful and amazing collection of people that we have on this today. Your Honor, Minister of Parliament Sharma, and also Dr. Shastri, who just spoke, brought some really deep words of wisdom to us about the integrity of nature. And of course, we appreciate so much Vandana's very deep presentation on so many of the aspects of that, the interactions between these, as she called them, baby technologies, and what they may really be doing in our world. I think that a good place to start is with that phraseology, baby technology. What we really need at this point is not what's happening, which is attempts to rapidly commercialize this technology, but we need 50-year moratorium during which we can actually do some research, as Vandana was saying, do some research that will allow us to deeply understand the potential of these technologies and also understand how to use them, if it is possible, and it's an open question, how to use them safely. We've learned over the last many decades that yes, we have nuclear technology, but there are many things that we could do with it that we don't because it can't be done safely. And there's still debates about the limitations of that. Is energy production really a safe thing to do with nuclear technology? It's a big open question. I would vote for no on that we're polluting the world too much with nuclear technology as it is. But I want to come back to where we are with the gene-edited crops right now. And the core point to be made is that although this technology was first presented as being precise and something that can actually be totally controlled in terms of its output, we now know that that is not the case, that it is very much the other way. In fact, let me read the title of a recent article that was an editorial in Nature about the problems with gene editing. The title was "CRISPR Editing Wreaks Chromosomal Mayhem in Human Embryos." Chromosomal mayhem, destruction. It's like a mix master going in and messing up the DNA, basically. That's what the articles that were discussed in this editorial had really shown. And similar things have been seen in a number of plants as well, in rice and other crops. And so what does this unexpected mixmaster effect do in the real world? Well, it brings with it the risk that crops that are manipulated using this technology will be toxic, or they could be allergenic, or they could be reduced in nutritional value. And Dr. Shastri pointed out how even just conventional breeding can weaken the value of these things. And or that lychee that Vandana mentioned, that was just breeding, and it can if you have the human intention there, let's make a bigger one or a sweeter one. You lose something when you do that. You lose some of the nutritional value, some of the flavor, some of its ability to be stored that way. And the same with the medicinal plants. Even just trying to replant it into another environment, you can lose things that way. But with gene-edited crops, we know that toxins are possible, that allergens are possible, that they can be reduced in their nutritional value. And what is the solution to this? The solution is that they must be tested, they must be regulated, and consumers should at least know that these things are labeled, that the foods that they're getting are manipulated in this way. So the foods should be labeled. But what does this new amendment do? It puts into the hands of one minister the ability to essentially make gene-edited crops invisible, unregulated, untested. So they would be entering the food system without any of the checks and balances that have been there even for the risky GMOs that are out there now. And we all are aware that although there has been regulation of GMOs, it has been imperfect and ineffective in bringing actually safe foods to the market. So these are things that really need to be protected. And this is going to have impacts on, if this particular amendment goes through, it will have huge impacts on consumers, but also on the farmers. Because gene-edited foods are a safety risk, the fact that UK farmers would be using gene-edited seeds would create doubts for consumers, and they would probably stop using those foods, especially if they're unlabeled. Second, the UK's largest agricultural partner is the EU, and the EU has wisely taken a very science-based, careful, regulatorily intelligent approach with gene-edited crops. And if the UK does the opposite, follows the American model, I apologize for my country in this respect, but if they follow the American model, where you're going to have gene-edited foods that are in the marketplace without safety testing and unlabeled, the safe thing for the European Union to do would be to say, well, UK crops cannot be sold in Europe because they are too much of a risk. So the risk is there that the UK farmers could lose their largest market overnight if this kind of a change is made. There's another interesting dynamic that's going on, and that is that the US and the UK are currently in the process. The current US and the UK government is negotiating with the US to establish a trade agreement. And one of the big demands of the US is that the UK remove all regulation around GMOs. They should not be tested, they should not be labeled, there should be no regulation around them. And if this is done, then there will be the risks that I've mentioned before in terms of the markets, where UK foods are going to become less trusted. But on top of that, there's going to be a deluge of cheap American genetically engineered, unlabeled foods entering the UK. And because the prices will be so low, those foods will compete against the UK farmers' foods, and likely will really weaken the agricultural markets that the UK farmers have, and over a period of time, not a long period, a couple of years probably, reduce the strength, the vigor of the UK agricultural operations. And what can happen, what the risk is that as the UK agricultural programs weaken, the country will become more and more dependent on US cheap foods. This is what the US has in mind. They've done this all over Asia and Africa, where they come in with cheap food. They essentially destroy the local agricultural markets. And as a result, there is no local production, and the countries become more and more dependent on cheap US foods that don't nourish the health and well-being of the farmers and of the people. So this is a very serious situation for the UK farmers, which is surprising. You know, what has happened is that the farmers have become a set of cheerleaders for this new amendment. And this is because they have been really not communicated with in an accurate way about this amendment. Essentially, what has happened around gene editing in general around the world and around this amendment is that there has been intensive deceptive marketing of gene editing. How gene editing has been described to the public, to regulators, and to legislators is very, very different from the reality of the situation, which we've been talking about, and also from what the biotechnologists talk about among themselves, and also to the patent officers, and also to investors. So to the lay population and regulators and legislators, they say, oh, gene editing changes only a single letter or a few letters of the genetic code of the organism, very small changes. These changes are no different from what nature does herself. And we control exactly what is going on when we do the gene editing. And so it's all safe. Tiny changes, nothing to worry about. But the promoters don't mention the risks that Vandana and I have been describing that are related to these crops that result in potentially toxic and allergenic crops that are reduced in nutritional value. And, you know, these omissions are bad enough, but there's one other thing that they don't really bring up, and that is what their vision is. They put this picture out that we're just going to do some small edits, some small tweaks to what Mother Nature has created over eons, you might say. But let me read a quote from Jennifer Doudna's book, which gives you another picture of what their vision is. It's megalomaniacal, if you could say. She says, we are standing on the cusp of a new era, one in which we will have primary authority over life's makeup and all its vibrant and varied outputs. Indeed, we are already supplanting the deaf and dumb and blind system that has shaped genetic material on our planet for eons, and replacing it with a conscious, intentional system of human-directed evolution. This is scary to me. This is very concerning that this is their vision. They're talking about little tweaks, but their vision is this huge thing. There's also science indicating that this is the direction that they are envisioning. Recently, a paper by one of the other founders of this field, George Church, and his collaborators showed that in a single genome, they could make 13,000 gene edits simultaneously in a single genome. This is what is called massively parallel gene editing. They're not talking about tiny changes. They're talking about massive changes. And the amendment, if it passes, will deregulate all of gene editing. And as a result, not just the tiny tweaks, but these massive changes will be allowed to be done on our food, our livestock, without any regulatory oversight, without any testing for safety, without any labeling of the results so that consumers won't even be able to make an intelligent choice about what is going on there. So I've brought some concerns to you about this technology, and I would end with a request, and that is please, uh, uh, please, Mr. Sharma, and please, all of you, ask your members of parliament to not vote for this amendment, to oppose this amendment. Your vote will not end the debate. And there's an assurance. Maybe some of you are saying, well, this is new science, so maybe there's something good from it. Well, remember that this amendment simply puts this decision in the hands of one man to be made in a non-transparent way. But voting this amendment down does not remove the gene editing from the table. It will just open it up so that all stakeholders in UK society will have the opportunity to have their say about it. And that's at least what is needed. That's at least what humanity deserves. It's a proper review of this technology before it's put out there in a massive way. Thank you very much.